Now, the next talk is by Thoralf Diro, security strategist at McAfee Labs. A lot of you probably know him from previous DeepSec appearances. And Thoralf is going to talk about Malware Trends 2011. Thoralf.
Yeah, hello and welcome. It's a little bit strange to actually hear my name properly pronounced. I'm talking a little bit about the malware trends, what we are seeing out in the world, what kind of development we are seeing, and actually I will be talking quite a lot about noise and signal. What do I mean with noise and signal? The signal is that interesting piece of data that you're actually interested in, and then you've got lots of noise that actually cancel that one out. Noise in this kind of form. We have seen a total malware explosions out there over the last couple of years, basically fueled by an unhealthy cybercrime underground. And so just to put a little bit into perspective what is happening just with your normal off-the-shelf malware, we are seeing something around maybe 55,000, maybe 60,000 new unique binary different pieces of malware each and every day. And this, obviously has got a lot of impacts on one side, how we analyze them, how we add detections, and most of that is now nowadays automated. And it has also impacted the AV technology that you are using at work. Frankly speaking, if you're not using things like the cloud-based file reputation, you're basically missing something like maybe 110 and 120,000 current detection, and actually those are those detection that you want to have at that very moment. Normally, criminals just spam out a Trojan once, and if you wait for your signature-based detection to be able to detect that, then so you didn't actually protect your systems. You now have just the tools to find the Trojan and maybe remove it. All this noise, unfortunately, is very sophisticated. There are a number of different groups trying to make money in the underground market by creating like crime packs, Trojan creation kits, which they are trying to sell. And obviously, if you've got the most features, if you've got the most sophisticated tool, then this is selling better. All this off-the-shelf malware is pretty much highly sophisticated and is frequently updated. It comes like with tech support, usually over ICQ. So criminals have got all the tools they need. And actually those tools are so sophisticated that in many cases, even nation-state sponsored espionage is being done with some of those kits. You may have seen the recent Semantic report about attacks against the chemical industry. The attacker in that case used Poison Ivy, which is a tool that is actually freely available for download. And we are seeing that also the malware is not only limited to the Windows world. It's obviously that this is like the most attacked platforms. If 90% users on the planet are using Windows, then, well, there's easy money there. But still, some criminals are trying to move on the macOS market. And another development that we are seeing at the moment is a dramatic increase in malware, in particular for Android. Actually, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think we have seen a non-Android Trojans in the last quarter. And this rise in the availability of Trojans will make it very interesting to see over the next years what is happening with mobile phone security. And some of that malware is actually fairly advanced. It makes use of exploits to take complete ownership of a mobile phone. And also from the functionality, what we are seeing there is basically the same functionality that is available on the PC, just carried over to mobile. Many Trojans simply are making money by sending text messages to premium services. but we are also seeing like botnet clients for mobile phones, banking Trojans that have got a mobile component, and also some of those Trojans allow the attacker to have complete control over the phone, going as far as monitoring phone conversations and then uploading them to a central command and control server. So this is definitely one space to watch out in the future, in particular as many people now start using their mobile phone to do online banking, to access corporate data. And if an attacker knows, well, the CFO has got an iPad, then instead of trying to hack through the entire network to get to the CFO's machine, it may be much more easy to just send an email with a link that you know the CFO will be opening on his iPad. That is abusing whatever is available on Jailbreak Me to instead completely Trojanize that phone. There was already a talk about fake alert scareware, so I'm not going into too much detail on this. It is a multi-hundred million US dollar business. Just one company back in 2008, when it wasn't a big problem, that we were monitoring, was making revenues in excess of 180 million US dollars. And this market certainly has become somewhat larger. But then a disaster struck the fake AV companies. Disaster in the form of ChronoPay, which was like the only company or the most widely used companies to do those high-risk credit card processings. After the CEO went to jail, they stopped processing all the orders for the fake AV companies, so they stopped making money. And their business model to distribute all those fake AV stuff was to have affiliates which have been paid per install. So they didn't make money, so they didn't pay their affiliates, so the affiliates pretty much stopped distributing all those pieces of malware. And so the good news is there is actually one chart with regards to malware that is going downwards. We have seen some reported infections from our consumer customers dropping something like 75%, and currently we are still at the same fairly low levels. Then we have seen a couple of big busts of botnets over the last years. Botnets like Bredolab, Rustock, and now the old Setlop DNS changer botnets, they have been taken out of the picture. And what we are seeing is that the people running botnets, they change tactics. Instead of creating big botnets with like millions of computers in it, instead they are now building up small botnets, which are much more difficult to take down. So when we now take down a botnet, it may only be like 20,000 computers in it instead of like 200,000, what would have been normal a couple of months ago. So we're not seeing the threats from botnets going away anytime soon. It is just getting harder and more difficult to actually get at the botnets and to battle them. Here's a little bit of an overview of the numbers of all the noise that we are battling against. And this noise really drowns out the more interesting stuff that actually pose most dangers for a company. You will also see the same like kind of noise if you're looking at the AV logs in your company. Depending on the size of the company, you can literally have like thousands of detections of various fake alert, auto-run worms, and whatever in your logs. And you are probably not able to like follow up on each and every malware detection. So there's quite a lot of the interesting stuff in your company will probably go completely unnoticed. For distributing all those pieces of malware, the attackers are resorting to well-proven tactics. One of them is black hat search engine optimization, where they are trying to get like their evil websites on the top, in the top for certain Google searches. And well, yeah, you may have seen that report before, where we basically for fun are like trying to find out who are the most dangerous celebrities. So if you were Googling for Heidi Klum, you had like nearly a 10% chance to land on a site that would try to infect you, or that would try to offer you some kind of Trojan, very often in the form of like a fake codec, where the site looks like a video site. And if you want to watch the video, you just get a message, oh, you're missing a codec, but fortunately, you can just download it here, so please do so. A fairly common way of infecting, to infect computers of unsuspecting victims. Another way is that is still being done on a massive scale is to break into websites, mostly with automatic tools using SQL injection vulnerabilities, to just place iframe links on a website that in the background then link to your attack server. And with automated tools, it is possible to like literally hit millions of websites in such a way with just one ongoing attack. And whenever something's newsworthy is happening out in the world, you can bet that attackers are taking that news and try to distribute malware that way. Whether it's Gaddafi's death or Steve Jobs, or maybe an earthquake here or there. Very often, especially shortly after the news event, the search results will be poisoned. And it's actually very difficult to like poison the Google search results for Michael Jackson. But if Michael Jackson dies and everyone is Googling for Michael Jackson dead, that's a completely new search. And then it's actually fairly easy for an attacker to get his dodgy websites into the top ranking, even in the top 10 of Google. And well, we are seeing still quite a lot of spam, even though spam is at its lowest level since 2007, mostly because some of the big botnets have been taken down. And well, spam again is, well, basically the noise that is canceling out the short pieces of signal, like in that case, a targeted spear phishing email that is being sent out, maybe with, in this case, a Word document as an attachment, that then is being used to install more targeted malware onto a user's computer. And well, this is now also where we have seen, well, the nature of attack changing somewhat over the time. Hacking for fun is still being done by many people, like maybe breaking into websites just to leave a message, hey, I'm cool, your security sucks, and please donate money for Anonymous or whatever. Since like, well, the year 2000, really after like 2005, we have seen, well, hacking for profit, all those cybercrime related activities becoming a major problem. And also more or less unnoted, hacking has also been used for espionage. And hacking for espionage is, for an attacker, really, really cost effective. And it has also been proven to be highly effective. Instead of like trying to send your people to get employed in a company, you can just sit at home and launch your attacks against the company. And if you're nation state backed, then you also have like all the time on the world for that. So you just keep on trying and trying. Maybe you are successful this week. Maybe you're successful at Christmas. Maybe you're successful at Christmas next year. That's still okay if you're being paid by a nation to attack certain targets. We are also seeing like the threat sophistication and the capability of damage going up a little bit with the various motivations. And the final motivation, clickstreak, that's basically something that so far we've only seen once, where military strikes in the war in Georgia fell together with strikes over cyber at websites and the internet presence or the online presence of operations. So this is like a kind of the one and first time that we've actually seen such a coordination of a kinetic war together with the support in cyber. There was apparently some talk about making use of offensive cyber war arsenal in the fight in Libya, where finally the decision was made to not use it, to not come up with like a first incident, or not being the first who are massively being involved in cyber war. And with all those changes, the old security model that many people are relying on, it simply doesn't work anymore. You know the security model of a flock of sheep? The strongest sheep are normally hiding in the middle, so on the outside are the older and the weaker sheep. So whenever a wolf is coming by and has appetite for a sheep, he will just get one of those anonymous old weak sheep on the outside, and the strong ones in the middle survive. And also, well, you basically just try to blend in all those sheep, convincing yourself that you are so unimportant, why would anyone go after you? They will most likely collect another one. And basically, it's like all the security that sheep are using is your network firewall and a virus scanner, which is basically all you need to get a certification of compliance the next time you get an audit. So many companies don't really bother to invest more in security. This is not working any longer now that there are so many targeted attacks out there. Where an actor attacks specifically your company. Maybe you did a press release, announced some cool new technology, where then people from other nations may decide, okay, that sounds cool, let's try to steal that technology. And this kind of targeted attack has become fairly easy. You may want to use some of those searches when you're back at home, or maybe while you're sitting here in the room. It is nowadays very easy to get all the information that you need about a target. With those basic search terms, and especially if you're working for the NATO in Brussels, an organization that is involved in a couple of wars, I don't really know why people post that in their LinkedIn profiles so that other people know their names and know where to may be able to find out where you're living to strike back at your family. Even there you get lots of hits. And following up on a couple of the names that turned up, it was many of those people then had Facebook profiles. So you're not only knowing their professional contacts, but now you're also knowing their other online friends. And some of them also had a Twitter account with a name that was fairly easy to guess, in particular if you have got all the information from Facebook. And some of them with Twitter even had the location service enabled. So you could not only see exactly what is of interest for a certain target at the very moment, you can also see where that target is. So with that, it is fairly easy to then create really convincing attacks against someone. So just for an example, I'm kind of paranoid when it comes to opening attachments. But it's fairly easy to find out that I'm at DeepSec. So if someone would have sent me a document yesterday, simply spoofing the DeepSec email address, like here's an important update for you concerning your talk at our conference, and attaching a PDF, I would find it a little bit strange that DeepSec is sending me a PDF, but it makes totally sense in the context. So chances of me opening that would be something around 100%. So with that in mind, you should simply assume that sooner or later an attack will be successful, that sooner or later someone is being sent a document that just makes sense, that someone is sent a link that he follows that just makes sense. The important thing is then to after you assume I've got infected computers in my network, then trying to block the following steps of those attackers. And those following steps, well, most of you are probably doing those steps. whenever you do a penetration test of a network. So this is like not really groundbreaking news and rocket science. Well, the first part, reconnaissance, we just covered already how easy that is and how easy then the next step is to send your targets inside a company. Well, the rigged documents, some kind of exploits to get machines infected. And well, after that, the attackers are trying to establish some kind of foothold, some kind of backdoor in the network, and then, well, using like basic network penetration tactics to try to get access to more machines, to infect more machines, to try to get access to privileged accounts, and then use those accounts to finally get at the mission goal. Get at the data and then also complete their objectives after stealing and uploading that data. So if you really want to protect your organization against that kind of steps, you clearly need to focus a little bit away from the just endpoint security, and instead are doing some kind of monitoring of especially access to your critical data. Just because an account is database admin doesn't mean he should be dumping all the tables out of a database, and certainly then not uploading gigabytes of information to some servers out there. So it's, having like network monitoring capabilities, in particular around critical accounts, having some kind of user behavior, account behavior monitoring. Those are actually the technologies which would enable you to attack this kind of attack, and then also to prevent this kind of attack from happening. And at the end of the day, the attackers will try to establish all kind of backdoors inside your systems, different pieces of Trojans, different pieces that enable them to easily come back next year to get an update of your technology or whatever data they were trying to steal here. Well, the answers why companies should care about all those targeted attacks or all those APTs in case of nation-state sponsors. Well, it's simply like the effort and the time that those attackers can invest. They have completely different motives than the average cyber criminal. The cyber criminal is more or less an optimist, is working more or less opportunistic. So he is happy attacking whatever victim clicks on his link or is stupid enough to install a codec. Instead, here, well, there is a clear political motivation or the motivation to get data of economic value. So they can just spend years attacking you, and sooner or later, they are very likely to be successful. To highlight just a couple of those operations, and those operations are basically just the tip of the iceberg. Usually, it's whenever we create a white paper about a certain operation, it is that this operation for some reason stuck out against all the others. There are literally hundreds of similar operations going on at every given moment. And Operation Night Dragon was one of those operations where our forensic team was called in to figure out what happened at one site, and has seen okay, those Trojans were connecting to this command and control server, where we could get some kind of access to that server, and then we could also see, oh, there were also connections from other companies. And all those companies, at least the 7 we know of, they were all companies in the petrochemical field. And well, the attackers obviously have achieved their ultimate goal. If you are able to steal like exploration data of new oil and gas fields from an oil company, get their bidding plans for oil fields, I don't think an oil company has any information that is more valuable, has any information that is better secured. And then another big operation was the Operation Shady Rat. I don't really know who comes up with all those fancy names. It's not me. And well, Shady Rat was basically only interesting because the attackers had connection logs on the command and control server. This normally does not happen, but in this case, well, a connection log was activated, and apparently they never reconfigured their server. So when we went in, we were able to get historical connection data all the way back from the year 2006. When the same group has been running attacks against various, a broad range of different targets. And it's also a little bit interesting to see like what kind of companies and organizations have been the target over the time. Many of the targets were like what you would think are obvious targets, like government organizations and federal contractors. Then there were some big industry companies. And then there was some targets that you probably think are like completely strange. Like around the time of the 2008 Olympics, they attacked the International Olympic Committee. Attacking means they were successful in attacking them, as well as a couple of local Olympic committees, the World Anti-Doping Association, and at another time, even the United Nations were a victim of just this operation, just this range of attacks. And we could also see how long they had a foothold inside the network of their various targets. So we have seen that many operations with computers inside the target network being infected and being actively used. Some of those operations went on for like 12 to 18 months, where basically part of the network of the victims were under the attacker's control, where then they could like slowly but certainly get at all the interesting data that they wanted to get at in the end. And many companies never noticed before that report was released and we notified them. And then they had to go back to their systems trying to figure out what happened, what not. And actually some of the victims weren't even interested in learning about it. Like, well, okay, we've been hacked, yeah, whatever. So that is kind of worrying, kind of strange to see that kind of reaction and that kind of follow-up or not follow-up. Then we have seen like another news earthquake happening. You probably have like heard all about Dooku, which basically is only interesting in one little aspect. Apart from that, Dooku has none of the Stuxnet capabilities. It won't detect PLCs. It won't spread by itself. Basically, Dooku is just one of millions of information-stealing Trojans. The only thing that makes Dooku particularly interesting is that it has been created by the same group that was behind Stuxnet. And this is becoming interesting if you remember who was originally attributed to be behind Stuxnet. So whoever you believe, it may be the US or Israel, or maybe both combined, or maybe Russia. Well, whoever was behind Stuxnet is now using Dooku to commit espionage. Mostly in the Middle East. Interesting enough, there is also at least one victim from the US and also one victim from England, which is, well, kind of strange. And Dooku and all the other tools being used for targeted attacks, for espionage, very often are making use of rootkit technologies to hide themselves, in some cases to try to be, simply be invisible for the normal virus scanner technology. And we are actually seeing a massive increase in the use of rootkit technologies, where it's nowadays it's more like the norm and not so much the exception that Trojans are coming with rootkit functionalities, or that actually a separate rootkit is installed that is then hiding the original Trojan. And some of those rootkits are close to impossible to detect for normal system tools. TDL or TDSS, it's the same name, a different name for the same thing, is one example, which is a fairly big family of rootkits. And detecting them is very, very difficult, and especially then removing the rootkit. In many cases, it's easier to just re-image or reinstall the machine when trying to effectively combat it against them. And now we have also seen rootkits that are using the BIOS to manifest themselves inside. So far, I think we've only seen 2 different rootkits out in the wild. I think one is attacking a Phoenix BIOS, and another one is attacking a specific a Vault BIOS. And detection of this rootkit is not that difficult, but you can imagine that removal is limited. So basically, it's the removal depends on what features your motherboard has. After the damage from CIH back in 1999, many motherboards actually come with 2 BIOSes where you can restore a destroyed BIOS with the help of another one. So this problems now also leads to some kind of new technologies that we are developing, which is starting to make use of processor features. You may have seen that McAfee has been acquired by Intel, and since then we have been working fairly close together with them to come up with some kind of new technology that is making use of the virtualization feature that a couple of those processors have. So basically it's an effective technology against rootkits, which is then of course limited to only special processors, is to have that virtualization technology to monitor key addresses in kernel memory, to monitor all those tables that malware needs to change, in particular the rootkits need to change. So then during boot up, the access and suspicious access to those addresses will be detected. Thus, a running rootkit will simply be killed while the machine is booting. And with continuous monitoring of all those addresses, the infections of a rootkit can be stopped in the first place. So this is kind of it's new technology that I would expect will be like kind of as common as currently all those cloud-based file reputation services are. Using hardware features to provide more security, that's probably the way that the entire industry will be moving or will have to move in the next couple of years. And bypassing the operating system that can so easily be affected or spoofed by a rootkit. Well, with that, here's a couple of more stuff to read. Of course, our quarterly threat reports, some of the data have already been used here, which will be released on Tuesday. And one document that is really interesting to read about corporate espionage is from the Office of the National Counterintelligence Executive, which goes into a fair amount of detail of what the US services are seeing, and also who they are accusing of doing what kind of operations. Okay, and with that, I hope I could at least tell you some interesting facts, some developments that may be a little bit new for you. If there are any more questions that you come up afterwards, just send me an email. And with that, I thank you for your time and patience.